I married Liu Ruyan without making it public, and our married life was like that of enemies, ignoring each other completely. It wasn't until I began discussing a collaboration with my ex-girlfriend that Liu Ruyan completely broke down. With reddened eyes, she confronted me. What is it about her that's better than me, that makes you treat me so coldly, brother? My relationship with Liu Ruyan didn't start out smoothly. Since I was a child, I was obsessed with appearances and only played with beautiful kids. When we moved to a new neighborhood, Liu Ruyan stood out among the dark-skinned children. She wore colorful clothes and little leather shoes, her fair and beautiful face glowing. Her sweet, childish voice captivated me, making me want to play with her. She was 3 years younger and half a head shorter than me, following me around all day calling me brother obediently. When did things start turning sour? It was probably when I entered middle school, made new friends, and started dating, paying less and less attention to her. When I thought of her again, she had become silent and distant, keeping everyone at arm's length. The one sweet girl calling me brother now was so different, and it made me uncomfortable. I tried to assert my authority as her older brother, but it only pushed her further away. Every meeting ended in either sarcasm or an argument. If not for this unexpected situation, we might never have spoken again. My family was lenient with me, with only one condition: use my marriage to elevate the family. After spending a few years abroad, my family planned to arrange a marriage between me and a daughter from the Jean family. I returned for a blind date with her. Despite her young age, she was quite shrewd and sophisticated. She didn't like me but couldn't resist her family's wishes, so they schemed to make me the guilty party. She drugged my tea. I wiped my hands, smirking. Miss Joan, what a clever trick. She smiled sweetly. You're too kind, Mr. He. I kept my composure until I was out of the Joan family's sight, then called my assistant, ensure no photos or videos get out. As I hung up, the drug took effect. This was no simple situation. The Joan family blocked the exit, leaving me two choices: endure the drug or find someone to divert their attention. Typical capitalist behavior. I lowered my gaze, quickly thinking of a solution. Yanzi, you're still sick, don't wander around. Go rest. Yeah, Yanzi, don't overdo it. You're burning up. A hoarse voice sounded as Liu Ruyan coughed, her face pale. I was surprised to see her here. She was unsteady on her feet, so I stepped forward to support her. I turned to her two sisters. Let me take care of her. Knowing our relationship, they trusted me despite our estrangement, except for Liu Ruyan herself. As soon as she saw me, she struggled to pull away, her lips pressed tightly together, preferring to lean against the wall rather than be near me. I wasn't offended, the sick have their privilege. Smiling, I asked her sisters, could you help me get her into a room? In this situation, aligning with Liu Ruyan was the only way to ensure my safety. She was already burning with fever, too weak to resist, as her sisters half-dragged her into a room. I followed them in, knowing the Joan family wouldn't dare come in. I intended to ask her sisters for help finding a doctor, but they fled after bringing Liu Ruyan in. Barely keeping conscious by digging my nails into my palm, I ignored Liu Ruyan lying on the couch and headed straight to the bathroom. The icy water helped quell the burning desire. I sighed in relief. Thankfully, it wasn't a matter of life and death. The sounds outside the room became muffled. The sound of something heavy falling to the ground interrupted the tense atmosphere. I wrapped a towel around myself and stepped out to check. Liu Ruyan, burning with fever and barely conscious, had collapsed on the floor. Even though I knew it wasn't serious, I was still startled and quickly moved him back to the sofa. On the table, I found some fever-reducing medicine, fed him a pill, and used a damp towel to cool him down physically. Halfway through, Liu Ruyan woke up. His dark, inscrutable eyes scanned my face, deep and unfathomable. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. The obedient Liu Ruyan who used to follow me around calling me brother seemed like a distant memory. Suddenly, he flung my hand away with force, his face cold, and the loathing in his eyes was cutting. A heavy weariness settled over me. The affection from my parents always came with strings attached, and now even a childhood friend had grown to despise me. I didn't want things to continue like this. Tossing the towel aside, I curved my lips into a smile and asked, do you hate me that much? Liu Ruyan didn't respond, his expression icy. Do you wish you could scrub away every part of you I've touched, wishing I never touched you like this? I grasped his hand. Or like this. I touched his face. He remained unresponsive, only staring at me coldly, his eyes clouded as if he were looking at something filthy. I didn't want to see that look again. With a malicious grin, I covered his eyes and, like a caged beast, bit his lips. The metallic taste of blood filled the air, and he winced in pain. It wasn't a kiss, it was an outlet for my frustration. He pushed me away, pressing down on my shoulders. His fever-flushed face now glistened with tears, his lips reddened, and there was a new emotion in his gaze. He Jiang. He called my name angrily. Feeling an odd satisfaction, I smirked. How does it feel to be touched by someone you hate the most? His eyes reddened as he clenched his teeth, spitting out one word, get out. Instead of feeling upset by his curse, a strange sense of pleasure welled up inside me. I couldn't help but stare at his stunning face, licking my lips as the heat within me surged. Liu Ruyan, let us sit down and talk. His temple throbbed as he gritted his teeth. He Jiang, get a grip. His words didn't reach me in my heightened state. Acting on instinct, I gripped his chin and kissed him again. That night was wild and reckless. The next morning, I bit my lip in regret, feeling overwhelmed. In today's world, many wouldn't care about such things, And I thought Liu Ruyan would be the same. I shared my thoughts with him, but his face turned terrifyingly cold. His voice was dark. You don't need to take responsibility for me. I was the one defiled last night, you should be asking if I need you to take responsibility. Unable to grasp his thoughts, I followed his lead. Do you need me to take responsibility? He glared at me. What do you think? And so, the marriage alliance was set. The events of that night were undoubtedly my fault. Liu Ruyan had never even experienced a proper relationship before being bound to me. After the marriage, he never showed me a pleasant expression, his face perpetually cold during our meetings. On our wedding night, he tossed and turned, sighing and groaning. I thought he was expressing dissatisfaction. Watching his face, I tentatively said, I know you don't like me, and this marriage was forced on you, but my family won't allow a divorce. We can live our own lives, keep our marriage a secret, and sleep in separate rooms. I won't ask anything of you. I thought I was being magnanimous, but Liu Ruyan's face darkened even further upon hearing this. He slammed the door on his way out, his voice chilling as he left. After that time with my best friend, my relationship with Liu Ruyan reached a freezing point. I thought he would never come back after he left. But I don't know if it was Liu's parents' instructions. Although he didn't complain, he still returned home on time every day. How could a good relationship be ruined like this? I rubbed my feet and stopped thinking about Hichia. I have cooperated with Guchia. My father sent me to talk. I collected my thoughts and opened the door of the private room. Little he, long time no see. I walked in. A familiar face appeared in front of me. I pulled the corners of my lips with a fake smile. It turned out to be him. You who flirt with women everywhere shouted. And we finally met. Hee baby, what's that expression on your face? Come on. With your ex-girlfriend. Retribution. He pretended to open his arms. Are you stupid? You can't be merciful to someone like him. Guyura covered her chest with her hands and pretended to be heartbroken. I rolled my eyes. Kicked his long legs. Miss Gu. Don't pretend, he will just say a little hee. You are still so ruthless. I didn't say anything. Poured a glass of water. Then. Looked at Guyu who was lying on the sofa. Can Mr. Gu get up to discuss cooperation? He was playing with his phone. I don't know whose message he was replying to. Laughed mischievously. Why are you in such a hurry? We have to reminisce about the past first. Drink some wine and chat. The outside world doesn't know that Liu Ruyan and I are married. The eyes under his face were silent. The door of the private room was pushed open. The waiter came in with a food cart and put the dishes on the table. Suddenly his hand shook. A large glass of water soaked my clothes. Guyura frowned. How do you do things? The waiter looked panicked. The attacker wanted to apologize. Sorry, Master He. We have a dressing room here. Do you want to change? I nodded. I'll ask someone to send you a set of clothes. Guyura said to me. You don't have to ask the assistant to send it. After calling the assistant, I walked towards the dressing room. Just as I was about to close the door, a thin, white and soft hand stopped me. The door was closed and the light was turned off. I didn't see her face clearly. I only knew that she was a woman. But I had a vague guess. Her shoulder was pressed on the wall. The man bit my lips angrily. The hand holding me trembled slightly. It was extremely painful. He pinched my waist to vent his anger. I tore my hand. The woman paused. Then she rubbed her hand stiffly. A flash of understanding flashed in her eyes. I turned my face away and didn't let him kiss me. My eyes were clear. I directly asked Liu Ruyan to move her hand away from my waist. The woman took a half step back. She responded vaguely. Hearing his affirmation, I fumbled to turn on the light. Liu Ruyan's ferocious face was revealed under the light. Although I guessed it was him, I was still a little surprised. Why are you here? Pulling the wound on my lip that was bitten by him. I frowned and did this. Something was wrong. Liu Ruyan's expression was normal. It was as if the person who just pressed me and kissed me was not him. A family banquet tyrant asked me to pick you up in the evening. Lu Fu had called me this morning and asked me to go there early. I didn't expect Liu Ruyan to come to pick me up. Given his current relationship with him, I don't know if he is willing to give me. Thinking of this, I spoke carefully. I still have something to do. If you are in a hurry, you can go first. He doesn't need to refuse. This means that he must understand what I mean. I took the clothes from the assistant and walked into the small compartment inside to change the wet clothes. I passed by Liu Ruyan who was still standing there. I wanted to tell him to find a place to wait. But then I felt Liu Ruyan is such a grown-up now. Why does she need me to tell her so much? She didn't say a word. Before pushing the door in, I looked at Liu Ruyan on the side. My brows frowned unconsciously. Do you want to go in too? He asked coldly. Is it impossible? Are you asking me to open a new private room? No matter how big the family business is, it will be completed sooner or later. I rolled my eyes silently. Does the Liu family need this little money? Forget it. It's a good thing that Miss Zhou has this awareness. Push the door in. Guyura heard the sound. Put away the phone. She raised her head and curled her lips and was about to say something. Her eyes fell on the woman behind me. Her face changed. What brought you here? Mr. Liu Ruyan randomly chose a place to sit down. I don't know where he got some candies and threw them to Guyu. Mr. Gu invites you to eat wedding candies. Guyura took the candies. She couldn't figure out Liu Ruyan's intentions without eating them. He held the candies and said happy wedding without any sincerity. Liu Ruyan raised the corner of her mouth and crossed her legs. She was very confident. Mr. Gu, you and my husband were classmates after all. As his classmate, he should give a wedding gift when he gets married. Why not cooperate with him this time? Mr. Gu was very pleased. Gu Yura savored Liu Ruyan's words and quickly looked back to the future. She turned her head and looked at me in astonishment. You are married. Although I don't know what Liu Ruyan is doing, it is a fact that you are married. I nodded. In a place I didn't see. Liu Ruyan smiled provocatively at Gu Yura. Gu Yura is nothing. Shamelessly he competes for second place. No one dares to compete for first place. He quickly recovered. Crossing his legs, he grabbed a handful of melon seeds. His tone was meaningful. Then Mr. Liu should pay attention. The divorce rate has been high in recent years. I hope Mr. Liu is not one of them. The two looked at each other. Indescribable tiger head power. I looked at the two of them inexplicably. Liu Ruyan patted her sleeves. Her eyebrows and eyes were cold. Mr. Gu doesn't need to worry about this. I don't know if Mr. Gu is willing to give this new wedding to his old classmate. I realized that Liu Ruyan was not joking. He really thought so. It's not such a big project. Even if Gu Yura is willing to give it to me, there is no reason for that. I cleared my throat. Just as I was about to speak, Gu Yura spoke first. What is there to be reluctant about? The gift is small but the sentiment is great. Just think of it as the last thing I, your ex-girlfriend, do for him. I will immediately ask my assistant to reorganize a contract. I hope this project can become your confidence. Liu Ruyan scolded. Mr. Gu is better than you. I hope Mr. Gu won't interrupt you when you go back. Gu Yura is not inferior. Mr. Liu and I are different. I just want he to live a better life. Who told me that I was his ex-girlfriend who he truly loved? The two of them had a back and forth relationship. They both threw themselves at each other's hearts. How old are you, but you are still so childish. I shook my head and walked out. Liu Ruyan sent a message, then waited for him at the door. Let them keep chatting. I don't know how long it will take. On the way home, Gu Yura sent me the new contract. She actually gave me so much. It's unheard of in the business world. I pinched my brows and replied to him. Don't worry about Liu Ruyan, just do it as before. Gu Yura replied very quickly. How can this be? A gentleman's word is as good as a promise. How can you take back what you've said? It's too late to spread it out. I frowned with a headache. A good project was messed up like playing house. I like him so much. A sarcastic voice sounded in the car. Liu Ruyan's eyes fell on my hand without knowing when. On the plane, the screen was not turned off. I didn't know where my finger had clicked. It turned out to be a selfie of Byro. I touched it. I clicked the wrong one and then pressed the return button frantically. I returned to the desktop. Liu Ruyan tapped her fingers on her knees and said casually, although we are in a marriage alliance, there is no emotional foundation, but you are the one who did the wrong thing. I am the victim. The family motto of the Liu family. People of the Liu family are not allowed to cheat. They are not allowed to divorce. They must be loyal to the marriage. I will follow the family motto. I hope you can do the same. I glanced at him strangely. He didn't seem to be following the family motto. But he said so. I nodded. I was afraid he didn't see it. I said good. The relationship between the two families has never been good. Wrong. Family dinner. It was just that Liu Fuxiang asked us to have a meal together. It was more lively. At the table. Father Liu kept signaling Liu Ruyan with his eyes. Pick up some food for me. Liu Ruyan was the doctor. Picked a piece of pork belly with a serving chopstick and put it in my bowl. I whispered a thank you. Then ate it in small bites. Liu Ruyan seemed to have found some fun. Started picking food in my bowl. Soon a small mountain of food piled up. My brows were furrowed so much that I could kill a fly. There was too much to eat. But it was not good to have leftovers. I quietly glared at Liu Ruyan. Stuffed the food into my mouth with a smile. Suddenly the bowl was taken away. Liu Ruyan took my bowl. Eat up the food in the bowl in 2 or 3 bites. My face got hot when I saw this hot. When we had a good relationship before, I didn't rely on my brother to let him eat my leftovers. But now, Father and Mother Liu at the big table didn't care. Instead, I saw Mother Liu's admiration. Looking at Liu Ruyan's flat face, Father Liu also looked relieved. Forget it, I'm too sensitive. After dinner, Liu Fu pulled me to chat. He Jiang, Liu Ruyan hasn't bullied you during this period. You have been obedient and well behaved since you were a child. If you are wronged, don't hold it in yourself. Dad will make the decision for you. When Father Liu heard that he was obedient and well behaved, Liu Ruyan flipped a page of a book heavily on the side. It was very loud. Liu Fu immediately turned his head and glared at him. If you were as sensible as He Jiang when you were a child. You cause trouble for me every day. Find something to do if you have nothing to do. Don't bother me. The person who really caused the trouble blushed quietly. When she was young, Liu Ruyan was very well behaved. She followed me all day long. She was well behaved and obedient. She would fight wherever I asked her. She was just like a little subordinate. It was easy to use. I am 3 years older than Liu Ruyan. When I was young, I was bewitched by his looks and was willing to play with him. But when I grew up, I was not willing to play with a kid like him. Until I got into trouble with other children in the compound, the children formed gangs and didn't play with me. They even wanted to pull 5-year-old Liu Ruyan into their gang. I was ready to have no friends. But Liu Ruyan always shared the same hatred with me and was not bewitched by anyone. A single-minded animal. I then completely integrated Liu Ruyan into my camp. She was so well behaved then. Look at her now. She has never spoken to me properly. She is either sarcastic or cold. Stinky Liu Ruyan. She usually stays overnight on the family dinner. Father Liu dragged me to talk until late at night. He Jiang, you are also my panda. I treat you like my son. If Liu Ruyan treats you badly, just kick him. He was quite likable when he was a child. I don't know why he became crooked when he grew up. He is not likable at all. Who would like him like that? Boys nowadays like caring men and women. He has a cold face every day. He can't say a few nice words. He Jiang, tell dad the truth. What do you think of him like that? I slept with him. About that night, Liu Ruyan and I tacitly agreed not to tell anyone. The reason was also proposed in a way that we were in love. Both families thought that Liu Ruyan and I were truly in love. Facing Lu Fu's sincere eyes, I could only speak against my conscience. At first, I just got used to him being by my side. I didn't want him to leave. I didn't understand what this feeling of reluctance was. After that, we separated. We went through a lot. It was because I liked him. So we were together. Lu Fu understood immediately. We were childhood sweethearts. It was a natural wedding. I nodded. Liu's father wanted to ask more. The stone door was knocked. Liu's mother's pitiful voice sounded outside the door. Hubby, I want to sleep. Lu Fu glanced at the time. It's 11 o'clock at night. He sat up embarrassedly. Seeing that I accidentally dragged you to talk until now, good boy, Dad won't disturb you. Go to sleep quickly. I walked slowly to Liu Ruyan's room and thought. Actually, I can disturb you for a while. I pushed the door open and went in. The light in the room was still on. Liu Ruyan was sitting at the head of the bed reading a book. She had already washed up. I went to wash again. Then I slowly got on the bed. It was so tiring to lie straight. I folded my hands on the tree and closed my eyes peacefully. Liu Ruyan's room was very big, but only this bed could be slept on. There was not even a sofa or tatami. The sheets and quilts were placed in another room. If I went to get them, I would be too conspicuous. It was not convenient to sleep on the floor. I couldn't sleep in the guest room either, so I could only sleep in the same bed with him. After a while, Liu Ruyan put down the book and lay down. While I was still keeping one eye open and trying to fall asleep, I could hear Liu Ruyan's shallow breathing beside me. She fell asleep. I turned over carefully. Not long after sleeping on my side, I felt uncomfortable and turned to the other side again. In just a few minutes, I turned around in several directions. If you don't want to sleep, I don't mind doing something else. The woman next to me had her balls. I don't know when she woke up. I didn't dare to hide anymore. I closed my eyes and went to sleep. After I came back from abroad, I followed my father to learn. The cooperation with the Gu family was the first thing he completely let go of and let me handle. When I came to the company, Gu Yura had asked someone to send the contract she liked. It was the one he sent me last night. I turned to the end and stared at it. I had already signed where I should sign. In such a big company, there is probably only one person who dares to do this. My stupid sister, will graduate from college next year. Her family intends to arrange for her to study in the company. She is now in the office next to mine. When I pushed the door open, she was sitting on a chair playing games. I put the contract on her desk. Her tone was stern. How could you sign the contract without authorization? You are a young girl who didn't realize your mistake. She didn't take it seriously. Why didn't you sign such a good thing? Facing the sister, I was angry but didn't argue. This is not a joke. What if there is a trap? The whole company will be ruined by you. He put down his phone in annoyance. He picked up the bag on the desk and walked out. Since everything I do is wrong, I won't be a bother to you here. After he left, I looked at the soul that had been tied to the silver with a headache. When my mother left, he and I were still young. Our values had not yet been formed. We were taken care of by our stepmother. In the first few years, he didn't have his own children. He cherished me and a little. Later, my stepmother had her own children. She let he and I go without letting us learn anything good. As a result, he and I became more and more deviant. Later, I went abroad. My stepmother's influence on me became less and less. Gradually I saw a lot of things clearly and gradually came to my senses. But he was stubborn and insisted on going down the same path. He was still devoted to his stepmother. I had to find time to have a good talk with he. I asked Gu Yura's assistant where he was. I drove there directly. A new club in Wutong Courtyard was right next to where Hong Guyan had arranged to meet me last time. I glanced at it. It was already this late. The store next door hadn't opened yet. I didn't think much about it and walked into Wutong Courtyard. I had just discussed a cooperation with Rugang. He was in a good mood at this time. When he saw me, he raised his eyebrows and guessed my intention. It was for the contract again. I nodded and took out the original contract that he hadn't had time to sign. I said, don't worry about Liu Ruyan. Things in the company cannot be stopped. Just do it as it was at the beginning. Gu Yura looked at me in surprise. You are so serious, but you don't look like you. If it was you back then, you would make me spit out even the last bit. Come. I pretended not to hear. Handed him the pen. Sign it. He couldn't beat me. Swished and swished his name on the contract. See. He signed and I raised my lips. Handed him another copy. Bosku, please sign here too. I've liked the Sonyuin apartment for a long time. But Kuyura got it first. Since he insisted on giving me a wedding gift, I can only accept it with tears. Kuyura laughed angrily. He pinched his eyebrows. Gritted his teeth and said every word. Hichiang is really polite. I was polite and sweating. It was considered as accepting his compliment to me. I was not stingy after accepting the gift. Invited him to dinner. Kuyura was even more impolite. Just a random scratch on the menu. And let me spend hundreds of thousands. We spent several hours on the meal. Kuyura was finally satisfied. He wiped his mouth elegantly and said hee baby. Thank you for the hospitality. I handed the card out with a painful feeling. The smile was fake. As long as Bosku is satisfied. With a stepmother, there will be a stepfather. My dad, me and he are still young. We should develop a good habit of thriftiness. Rick secretly deducted a lot of money as an excuse. I seemed to be living a good life, but I was a poor man behind the scenes. After sending Miss Gu away, I hurriedly took the signed contract back to the company. After entering the company, someone whispered something to me along the way. I pinched my eyebrows hard. Back to the office, the assistant was waiting anxiously inside. Something happened to brother he. Someone broke your secrets on the internet. Needless to say, I guessed it. Those people's reactions were too strange. The assistant handed me the post. I quickly browsed it. It said that the marriage between me and the Liu family was that I used abnormal means to deceive Liu Ruyan, forcing him to marry me. After I married Liu Ruyan, I was still restless and had a connection with my ex-girlfriend Kuyura. The two of us stayed in the same room for more than 3 hours. What would happen in 3 hours is imaginable. The picture was a photo of me and Kuyura having dinner today. I didn't know what kind of public person is this. This piece of black material shouldn't be so widely spread. But the other two protagonists, the eldest daughter of the Liu family and the second daughter of the Gu family, are both people who often appear in the news. With those two distinctive faces, it's hard not to be famous. For a while, this post was pushed to an unimaginable popularity. I don't care what people on the internet say. The important thing is how to explain to Liu Ruyan and my family. After all, the marriage proposal with Liu Ruyan is not wrong. Although it is not my wish, it is almost the same. The most important thing is that this person also indirectly exposed the fact that I married Liu Ruyan. I don't know if there will be any abnormality on Liu Ruyan's side. Thinking of Liu Ruyan looking for trouble with me, my head is big. What happened during this period of time is more than what happened when I stayed abroad for a year. I told my assistant a few words. On the way out of the company, many people who knew that Liu Ruyan and I were married came to inquire about the news. It was the first time I knew I had so many good things. I didn't go back. There was no Liu Ruyan's car in the yard. At this time of the year, he would have almost returned. I asked Aunt Zhang to cook 2 more dishes. I sat in the room waiting for her and organized what I wanted to say. It was just past 6 o'clock. I received a message from Liu Ruyan's assistant. General Manager Liu was on a business trip and would not be back tonight. I don't know if I was disappointed or relieved. It was just so popular. Even if Liu Ruyan didn't see it, her assistant would tell her. But he didn't mention it at all. Did he not care, or did he go downstairs by default and let Aunt Zhang not cook? I can't eat so much by myself. Before the matter became a big deal, Liu's issued a statement. General Manager Liu and General Manager he were childhood sweethearts. They grew up together and loved each other sincerely. As for the false accusation against General Manager he on the internet, our Liu's has a special team of lawyers who will handle this matter. General Manager Zion he and Director Gu are discussing cooperation. Both assistants are present. What netizens speculated did not happen. We will send a lawyer's letter to the rumor mongers. The attitude of warning Liu's family is strong. The tough measures are strong. Most people on the internet are just following the trend and watching the fun. They don't want to cause trouble. Not long after Liu's statement was issued, the heat of this matter dropped. The Liu family obviously stood on my side. People who were waiting to see the joke in the Weibo circle lost interest. Everything returned to normal. But for several consecutive days, Liu Ruyan did not come back. The contact with him was all through the assistant. Based on my understanding of Liu Ruyan, this is probably his answer. It is enough to maintain superficial harmony. After the news of the marriage was exposed, many more people invited me. Most of them I turned down. But there was one that I really couldn't turn down. The youngest daughter of the merchant opened a new store and invited me to show my support. The He family has frequent exchanges with the merchant. I have to go. I am afraid that I won't go. The merchant sent someone to pick me up. The person who came to pick me up saw Liu Ruyan. He had not seen her for a few days. He has lost a lot of weight. There is a bit of a jade seal hidden between his eyebrows. Then I remembered that Liu Ruyan and Shang Qin are good friends. They have a good relationship. I wanted to talk to him about the online thing. But his attitude these days made me really unable to say it. If we don't talk, we won't meet. ISNT that already showing his attitude, no words along the way. We went in separately when we arrived. As for our village committee, anyone with a discerning eye can see the problem at a glance. I didn't want to be talked about. I deliberately fell behind the well and found a place opposite to him. Shang Qing is famous for his love of playing in the circle. He opened a store for fun. It's still daytime now. The environment inside is no different from that at night. Men and women are singing and dancing on the stage. There are also beautiful women and handsome men. At the bar service, at a glance, each one is more beautiful than the other. If it were me, I used to flirt with beautiful women in the morning. Unfortunately, this life is different from the past. I didn't expect that even though I was doing such a corner, Shang-Ching could still be found. He led people away in a hurry. Come here, brother-in-law, why are you here alone? My sister has been waiting there for a long time. The sister he mentioned is not Liu Ruyan, right? It seems so. I will take this opportunity to give her a gift. It's fine without me here. Boss John, I wish you a prosperous business. Brother-in-law, Shang-Chi looked embarrassed. It's strange. No one forced him. Why did he look embarrassed? I casually dismissed him with a few words. I found another corner to hide in. The food in Shang-Chi's store is quite delicious. He should open a restaurant. I accidentally ate too much. I walked out of the private room and disappeared in the corridor. Suddenly, a hand reached out from the private room next to me and pulled me in. This familiar feeling, I almost didn't need to guess who it was. I was confused. What did he want to do? He gently rubbed my neck. The soft hair brushed across the edge. I don't understand what you are doing. In the silent darkness, I remembered the sound of him swallowing. What exactly am I not as good as him? Worth it? You've done this to me to ward off evil for him. The song is over. The skin on my neck feels frustrated. I think of something. I speak in disbelief. You cry. Liu Ruyan paused. Leaves my neck. Unable to hide her father. I don't have any reason. We're all adults. It's impossible for me not to be like this. But he doesn't act like this. At least I can't see it. After a long time when I was almost out of patience, Liu Ruyan finally spoke. Because I like you. All I do, I just want you to have me in your eyes. I think it's ridiculous. You give me a cold face. I used to be very obedient. But you forgot me. If I don't take the initiative to find you, you won't find me. I've been waiting for you to come back. But you just want to move forward. Brother, I can't be too good to you. Because you won't cherish me. You will just abandon me after you get me. I originally thought it would be okay to live like this. At least you have me in your eyes. We are together. But I didn't expect that an ex-girlfriend would shake my position in your heart. You kept looking for me a few days ago to ask me for a divorce. When he said this, he laughed sarcastically. Thinking of that scene, his voice became cold again. I can't divorce you. You'd better give up this idea. After saying that, he seemed not to want to hear my answer. He fled and wanted to push the door and leave. I turned on the light and grabbed his wrist. I didn't want to divorce you. He froze at the word Liu Ruyan. His expression looked a little funny. You don't have to lie to me. No matter how many sweet words you say, I will not agree to a divorce. Suddenly I realized that after so many years, Liu Ruyan is still the child who followed me back then. It's just that the child has grown up and become awkward. He can't even please people and say he likes them. Instead, he pushes people further and further away. I have problems too. I have a conflict with people. Not long after, I can reconcile as before. But Liu Ruyan can't. He remembers those people who bullied me. Will never play with them again. His world is very small. From beginning to end, he only put me aside. When he grew up, he made new friends. Forgot about him behind. So he became aggrieved. He could only use this way to attract my attention. Liu Ruyan, let's fall in love. Liu Ruyan didn't hear clearly. Fall in love like a couple. I lost my mother when I was young. My father didn't care. Actually, I lack love. Making friends crazily because I want someone to love me. In fact, that person appeared at the beginning. But he was like a shadow. I had long been accustomed to his existence. And often forgot his existence. Until he disappeared. I started to care. Fortunately, he was always there. After talking to Liu Ruyan, he became the same as before. No deliberate indifference. His eyes always followed me. Willing to follow behind me. After falling in love, he become constipated. Kissing right after falling in love. Is it too fast? I rolled my eyes. You didn't say that in bed. I looked to the side. There was a couple next door. The boy added a doll to his girlfriend. His girlfriend spun happily. This is not easy. Just buy a bigger doll for him. After all, my dolls have never been successful in more than 20 years. I'd better not embarrass myself in front of him. Liu Ruyan kissed me on the face. Thank you, brother. Oh my god. What kind of treasure is little sweet bean? Liu Ruyan, Kuyura, who disappeared for a long time, sent a message to apologize. I was put in solitary confinement by the old man some time ago. I didn't help you clarify it in the first time. I apologized for not helping you clarify it in the first time. I want to treat Master He to a meal. Liu Ruyan smiled and said that her attitude was not bad this time. Zhong Jia disappeared completely overnight. Zhong Yan should have thought about the aftermath when she slandered you. I haven't seen the message yet. Liu Ruyan has finished reading it. He is the most. I recently bought a lot of love manuals online. They are, if you can't beat them, join them. On the self-cultivation of a green tea girl. After 2 months of dating, he is no longer as worried as he was at the beginning. He knows that I am a bit stupid. He directly looks back at the down jacket. It feels good to be in solitary confinement. I will give you another free one. Mr. Gu and I are also friends. Are you interested in being a bridesmaid when my brother and I get married, Mr. Gu? You must come on my wedding day. After sending it, you may still be afraid that I will be angry. She is wearing cool clothes. The place where I let go just touches her spring scenery. Brother, I am so direct. Mr. Gu will not be angry. After all, I am not like Mr. Gu. She is my brother's ex-girlfriend who he truly loves. Newcomers are always worried about gains and losses. But is Mr. Gu right? He sent a message in the middle of the night to ask. Who knows what he is thinking? I really can't stand his acting. I touched his spring scenery and pricked my mouth. Mr. Liu, a moment of spring night is worth 1,000 gold. Are you sure you want to continue?